Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Welcome to AMC Versus, our AMC movie issue debate show, where every week we take one hotly contested issue in the world of movies. We get two advocates to argue each side, and we ascribe to both of them a position that they are supposed to take and then defend vehemently and passionately that position. My name is John Campy. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News. Joining us as our advocates today, first of all, standing on my immediate left, she is the victor from last week's AMC Versus, Miss Erin Darling. Erin, thank you for being here. And of course, standing to my right, he is the one and the only Mr. John Schnepp. Today's issue is going to be, who is the better Spider-Man? Tobey Maguire from the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, or Andrew Garfield from the brand new Spider-Mans being directed by Mark Webb. Now, defending the position of Tobey Maguire will be Erin Darling. Defending the position of Andrew Garfield will be John Schnepp. Before we started the show, we did a coin toss to determine who would go first. Today we determined that would be Erin. Here is our format. Each advocate will start with a 3-minute opening argument. They will then each be given 90 seconds to do a rebuttal, and then they will have a 45-second closing argument. At that point, I will render a judgment, and my judgment will be worth 5% of the overall vote, and then we will ask you, the jury, to vote on who you believe won the debate. Not which position do you take, but who you believe won the debate, who presented the most convincing argument for their position. You'll have a few days to vote online, and then on Friday on AMC Movie Talk, we will announce the winner. So with all that being said, it's time for us to start a debate. Once again, Erin Darling defending the position of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Erin Darling, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement, and your time starts now.
As most of you are well aware, today we are here to discuss Spider-Man, one of the most iconic and beloved comic book characters of all time. A character whose essence has changed over the years in various pop culture incarnations, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. But Tobey Maguire has indeed been vigilant in preserving the original image of Spider-Man. He effectively embodied the key elements of relatability, nerdiness, emotional depth, as well as physical skills exhibited in a classic version of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, as defined by the character's creator himself, Stan Lee, and I'm going to tell you how he did that right now. In 1962, Stan Lee was looking for a new superhero idea, so instead of coming up with a muscle-bound dude carrying a Cro-Magnon weapon, he decided to create Spider-Man, a character that teens could actually identify with. So he made him relatable, exuding traits even when he was in costume that were very human. So Stan Lee felt so strongly about this that he turned down the opportunity to work with Jack Kirby with his initial design of Spider-Man because he was too heroic, eventually turning to Steve Ditko, who helped create the superhero in his normal identity, Peter Parker. Peter Parker is a science nerd, and his relatability is often established through his vulnerability. Feelings of rejection, inadequacy, and loneliness. Tobey Maguire perfectly harnessed his inner nerd to play this character. How? Because he's an actual nerd. Andrew Garfield, on the other hand, played a bumbling and brooding Peter Parker who rolled out of bed and into a Silver Lake coffee shop, Exhibit A. Garfield's Peter Parker is not a nerd. He's a caricature of a nerd. I'm sorry, but a pair of glasses on a hot guy does not a nerd make. Exhibit B. Am I a scientist now? Did I just get smarter? No, I did not. I can confirm
Objection.
that.
Objection has been, your time has been paused.
I think glasses make people sexier. So, Erin, by putting on the glasses, you indeed just became sexier.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that.
I'm going to have to agree with John Schnepp on this. The jury will disregard Erin Darling's argument about glasses.
Oh,
your time
man.
continues now.
All right. I digress. So, not only did Tobey Maguire perfectly embody a Peter Parker, but he also blew critics away with his performance as Spider-Man. Stan Lee's Spider-Man was agile, he possessed speed and strength, and all these skills were exhibited in fight scenes that we saw in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, skills we have yet to see in The Amazing Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire made an incomparable Spider-Man because even when he was Spider-Man, he maintained relatability and stayed true to Stan Lee's vision of the character. At the core, Spider-Man isn't a total badass. He's not a hitman or a mercenary. He's certainly no Deadpool. The original comic book version of Spider-Man exhibits traits of empathy. He's guilt-ridden after losing Uncle Ben, and he wants to use his powers for good. I conclude my argument, not with my words, but with the words of someone far wiser who knows exactly what Spider-Man should be. In a recent interview with the Huffington Post, a reporter asked Stan Lee what his favorite superhero performance of all time was. His response was, "That's so difficult. I think the performance of Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man," because he was such an unexpected big success. Now, that's a pretty powerful statement coming from the creator of the character himself. But he's right. Tobey Maguire successfully brought the elements to define a classic Spider-Man, what Spider-Man was originally intended to be.
Well done. A well-presented argument.
Thank you.
Very strong final point, too, bringing Stan Lee into it. Mr. John Schnepp, I do not envy the task in front of you, but your task it is. You have 3 minutes for your opening argument. Your time starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, Judge Campia, Erin Darling, I'd like to state just a couple of facts. Tobey Maguire is on record in 2000 promoting Spider-Man in Australia with Willem Dafoe, stating, "I have never read a Spider-Man comic, nor do I ever want to read a Spider-Man comic." Andrew Garfield grew up loving Spider-Man and dreamed of one day performing as Spider-Man. Ladies and gentlemen, dreams do come true. Andrew Garfield is now playing Spider-Man, and The Amazing Spider-Man #2 looks like it is going to be one of the most incredible superhero movies to happen this decade. So, Tobey Maguire, on the other hand, does not represent Spider-Man to me, not only just as an actor, not understanding the character, not ever having read a Spider-Man comic ever, not even probably knowing who Stan Lee even was, but his role as Spider-Man in all 3 movies, though I liked Spider-Man, then I really liked Spider-Man 2, mainly because of Dr. Octopus and Sam Raimi's directing style. You gotta admit, Spider-Man 3 is a big piece of trash. It's an embarrassment to the actual name Spider-Man. Not only does Tobey Maguire, who I believe he was a producer on it, he is dancing as a dark Peter Parker. What would you call him? Emo Peter Parker, wearing his hair down, doing these dance moves. I guess there was like a 3-minute sequence. I've only seen the movie twice because I watched it a second time to be like, was I really wrong in thinking this was a piece of trash? And unfortunately, without saving a couple of performances by the Sandman and a few other things, Tobey Maguire was one of the reasons that I really disliked Spider-Man 3. And his performance and his okay, not only with Sam Raimi and the other screenwriters, but his desire to perform as a fool in Spider-Man 3. Also, he doesn't really fit the actual comic book drawings of Steve Ditko. Who fits it? Andrew Garfield, tall, lanky, skinny. Tobey Maguire, short, pudgy, kind of puggy, and...
Objection.
Okay, time has been stopped. There's been an objection raised. Erin, what is your objection?
Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire are the same height.
Oh.
Same build. According to the comics.
I am going to have to direct the jury to disregard the last argument regarding body type from their argument. John Schnepp, your time resumes now.
I will stick to what I said, thin. Extra thin and wiry, and that is Spider-Man. If you look at a Spider-Man comic, that's how he's drawn. He's not drawn as a Wolverine-type, stocky-type character, but, you know, I'll go with that. I think Andrew Garfield's performance in the one film that exists right now, just The Amazing Spider-Man, to me was actually a true performance as Spider-Man. As Peter Parker and Spider-Man, he captured that kind of, that nerdiness and outcast that back in the 60s, yes, that worked back then. They had to update it for now. So to me, his performance as Spider-Man in just the one film that we've seen and the trailers of The Amazing Spider-Man proved to me that I think Andrew Garfield overall is going to achieve what Tobey Maguire did not and actually become Spider-Man.
All right, well done, Mr. Schnepp, with your argument. We now enter into the rebuttal phase. Each one of our advocates is going to have 1 minute and 30 seconds to refute and rebut the arguments made by the other. We go back to Erin Darling. You have 90 seconds for your rebuttal. Your time starts now.
Schnepp, one day I dreamed a dream too when I was a young child. I dreamed of being an astronaut by night and the president by day. And dreams do come true. But unfortunately, dreaming doesn't make you better at your job. I am not an astronaut or the president. Proof is in the pudding. Also,
Objection.
in regards...
An objection has been raised. Yeah, we now, by the way, didn't mention that each of the advocates is
can't
allowed
object to my dreams.
Oh, she can.
Oh, yes, I can.
Object to my dreams.
I just did.
Each of our advocates now has 2 objections instead of 1. Schnepp has just exercised his second objection. Mr. Schnepp, what is your objection?
I was going to say dreams do come true. I dreamed of being a comic book artist and also a filmmaker, and I'm both now. So for some people, dreams do come true. Andrew Garfield dreamed of being Spider-Man. Bam!
All right, I'm going to allow the jury to keep the dreams coming true by Miss Erin argument, but only so far as they pertain to her being an astronaut and the president, not to our Spider-Man performers. Ms. Darling, your time continues now.
Thank you. In terms of the third Spider-Man movie, yeah, not a great movie overall, but it's not illogical when it comes to Peter Parker Spider-Man development in terms of the character. It's just the natural progression of a douchebag. You even see it happen in the comics. So with that logic, he was true to the classic comics. Now, Andrew Garfield is not a nerd. He's not today's nerd. He represents the masses, even worse, the masses that think they're cool and then they all look the same. He's not a nerd. He's not a good representative of that community, and that's where all the relatability comes from with Spider-Man, because he was an outcast. And I guess I should end with saying that Stan Lee, I mean, can you trump that? Stan Lee.
All right.
Yeah,
Well done. All right. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
It is now time for us to move to Mr. Schnepp's. He has 90 seconds to refute the arguments by Ms. Darling. So, Mr. Schnepp,
Sorry,
your 90 seconds start now.
I don't want to come off as overconfident that I'm not using a script and having to refer to stuff. I just actually believe in what I'm saying. And I also don't need to use a photograph that was taken in real life, that wasn't like off screen somewhere at a coffee house. If you go on the internet, you'll find 5,100 photos of Tobey Maguire being a douchebag at a coffee house, wearing shades and fake glasses.
Though. Objection.
I'm just saying
Wait, an objection has been raised. An objection has been raised.
This is
What is
from
the
The
objection?
Amazing Spider-Man.
All right.
It's not just a random picture, and it says I'm in Silver Lake, yo.
All right, so the objection will stand. It will disregard Schnepp's argument against the picture itself.
I
Your
will
time continues again.
I'll simply state you can find a lot of douchebag pictures of anybody online.
That's true.
That to me doesn't count for anything. I think Tobey Maguire's fatal flaw as being not the true Spider-Man actor, and why Andrew Garfield is the better actor as Spider-Man, is simply the 2 things that I will repeat. Is A, he never read Spider-Man, doesn't even know who the character was until he got cast. 2, he never wanted to read it even after he was cast. I'm just never going to read it. I'm just going to play this as a role. And I don't think he really did the job justice, especially in the third one. The third movie, he took it as a joke and made the Spider-Man character and Peter Parker a joke. Andrew Garfield grew up loving Spider-Man. He is Spider-Man now. He's going to be in more Spider-Man movies than Tobey Maguire is going to be, and he's going to be in 4, probably 5, probably 6 Spider-Man movies. And he's playing the character just like how I read Spider-Man, as an outcast, a nerd who's trying to fit in, and he's just the better actor.
All right. Well done. Now, before we move into our closing arguments, I, your Right Honorable Mr. Giovanni Campia, your judge today, have formulated a couple of questions that I want to pose to each of our advocates. And Ms. Darling, I will start with you. You've taken some time to go into detail about how Tobey Maguire represents the vision of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. How would you respond to some who may argue that while that may have been the case for 1960s Peter Parker, that an Andrew Garfield better represents the modern day equivalent and manifestation of those characteristics? How would you respond to that?
I would say interesting point, but my whole argument is formulated around the fact that he is the better representative of the classic Spider-Man, of the Stan Lee version of Spider-Man. And we've seen that change a lot throughout pop culture and different adaptations, interpretations of the character. But I think he is closer to the old school original version of Spider-Man.
Well said, Mr. Schnepp. In a similar question to you, there can't be much denying that Tobey Maguire has kind of embodied many of the classic ideas of Spider-Man and the classic representation, and that for many viewers, Andrew Garfield represented a little bit of a departure from what we've known as Spider-Man. How would you respond to those people?
I would respond to, I loved Adam West in the original Batman, just like I loved Tobey Maguire back in the 2000, like 14 years ago. We're in a new decade, and Andrew Garfield actually plays the role of the now Spider-Man. We can't go back into the 60s and go back to Tobey Maguire playing that 1960s Spider-Man character, which he did embody. Now we're in the brand new reboot of brand new Spider-Man. And originally I didn't want to see The Amazing Spider-Man, but when I finally did see it, I was really impressed. So that to me, he is the new embodiment of Spider-Man. And as an actor, I think he plays it a lot better than Tobey Maguire. That's my opinion.
All right. We've reached now the final stage of this debate, the closing arguments. Each of our advocates will have 45 seconds to restate their case in the most succinct and hopefully effective way possible. Erin, darling, we start with you. Your closing starts now.
Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Peter Parker really did exhibit the elements of the classic Spider-Man that I think are so important. The relatability, the nerdiness, the emotional depth. He really brought something to this role that we hadn't seen before, and his physical skills as well, because he is actually pretty close to the way that Spider-Man was originally envisioned to be. In addition, I think I'd just like to throw this in there. Also, he had to learn how to master the upside-down makeout session, which is no easy task. That is so difficult. And that moment was magical. It's going to go down in movie history, and I've yet to see Andrew Garfield's version of that as magical, full of fiery chemistry, as we saw in Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man. Also, let's see. Yeah, I think it's...
Time. Erin, your time is concluded. Thank you so much for your argument. Mr. Schnepp, you now have 45 seconds to make your closing argument. Your time starts now.
Tobey Maguire, a non-Spider-Man fan, having played Spider-Man and never read a Spider-Man comic, his acting in the first two, I'm not going to argue that. He was good in Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. What he destroyed in his believability was in Spider-Man 3, allowing a dance number, him performing it, being like, playing it as a joke. Unfortunately, that's Spider-Man 3 to me. It's a joke. The Amazing Spider-Man reboots not only Spider-Man, but gives Peter Parker a brand new persona, an updated version of Spider-Man with all the things that we love about the character. Andrew Garfield is going to prove it in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 3, 4, and so on. So I think he did a great job, and that's all I've got to say.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the arguments have been presented before you. It now falls to you to make sure you go online and vote for who do you believe made the better case and the better argument in this movie debate. Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, as represented so well by Mr. John Schnepp, or Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, represented so well by Erin Darling. It's now time for me to give my verdict on this case, which will count for 5% of the overall vote. Both sides brought up impressive points, as a matter of fact. I think this was a step up over last week's debate. I really do. I think you both did a magnificent job. In the end, though, I have to confess that I was swayed more by John Schnepp's arguments, and my judgment goes for John Schnepp defending Andrew Garfield. But my vote's only worth 5%. It is now up to you guys to look in the description of this video for a link where you can go and you can cast for your vote for who you believe won this debate between Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man or Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, as debated by our two advocates up here. Thank you so much for joining us. Erin Darling, thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
John Schnepp, thank you for your efforts.
Thanks.
And thank you most of all for voting, guys. Head on over, click that link, go and vote. And until next time, don't forget, we will announce the winner of this debate on Friday's episode of AMC Movie Talk. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for participating. Until next time, I'm Giovanni Campia. So until then, bye-bye.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news, and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.